Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Daniel, and today I want to talk about the Transfiguration and the Rapture on the 8th day of Tabernacles. So let's get started. We'll go to Luke 9:27. It says, "But I tell you truly that there are some standing here who will not taste death," in other words, they will rapture, "until they see the kingdom of God." Now, this is probably referring to John, who sees the vision of Revelation, because he was the one standing there who saw the kingdom of God. But nevertheless, there is a parallel interpretation of those who will not see death, which matches with what Paul said. "Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye at the last trumpet. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed." I don't know how people can say there is no rapture. The Bible clearly is describing a rapture here. All right, back to the Transfiguration. In Luke. Now, about, or the Greek word there is like or as if, 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James, and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face, or his body, was altered, and his clothing became dazzling white. Now, Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep. It's another way of saying dead a really long time. But when they became fully awake, or when they were resurrected, they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, that Peter said to Joshua, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing what he said. And as he was saying these things, a cloud overshadowed them. They were caught up in the clouds, and they were afraid and entered the cloud. So this is also tied into Thessalonians. "We which are alive and remain are caught up or raptured into the clouds," just like we've got from the Transfiguration. So what Luke is making clear here is there's a reference to the 8th day, there's a reference to tabernacles, there's a reference to being asleep for a long time or dead, and to being raised up and in the clouds. It's got all the parts to give us rapture typology and timing. And we also know from Matthew and Mark, who also have an account of the Transfiguration, but it's slightly different. They say after 6 days, Jesus took him and Peter and James and his brother. So after 6 days is another way of saying after 6,000 years. So after 6,000 years of creation, on the 8th day of Tabernacles, our bodies, our faces are going to be transformed, and we're going to go up into the clouds. And that's pretty much what I interpret the Transfiguration to be saying. I also want to point out that Matthew goes on to say up on a very high mountain, mountains being a symbol of nations. We can see this in Matthew 4:8. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world. So when he led them up a high mountain, that's basically leading them to the top of Babylon, the height of Babylon. And that's when he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. So this is another reference to the sun, and the clothes, of course, becoming white as light. That is a reference to sunrise, potentially, because the sun. And also the woman from Revelation, who was clothed with the sun and was given fine linen, bright, pure white. So the connection to the woman clothed with the sun would also be a reference to Tabernacles, which occurs during the 7th month. That's the only time the woman is clothed with the sun, is during the 7th month. And then there was a voice, which is often, a voice could be compared to a sounding, a loud trumpet, or a shout. So there would be a shout, or the voice of God, or the trump of God, the last trump, and the dead will rise first. So there was a voice from the cloud. So the other time in the past there was a voice from the cloud was in Exodus, when they're on Mount Sinai, and a voice comes out of the cloud like a trumpet, and everyone's terrified, and there's thunderings and lightnings and shakings. And voices from clouds are usually associated with that that time. So fall of Babylon, Exodus, and here. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to or obey him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. Same thing happened at Mount Sinai. Voice from the cloud, everyone's terrified, they fall on their faces. But Jesus came and he touched them. And the word touch means to like take hold of, or to grab, or to attach to. Which is kind of a way of saying raptured, right? Snatch. He's saying, rise, when there is resurrection, and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, lift up your eyes, your redemption draws near. They saw no one but Jesus only. So, in summary, I interpret the Transfiguration as a vision of the rapture and resurrection from the dead. First, Moses and Elijah, the dead rise first. They're standing with Joshua. Then the disciples, they awake, which represent those who are alive and remain. And this verse mentions the 8th day of Tabernacles. And collectively, the Gospels imply after 6,000 years from creation, our bodies are changed, our clothes become bright white, and he tells us to have no fear as we are caught up in the cloud with him. So this is additional evidence in addition to Joel 2:15, which points at the 8th day of Tabernacles. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. There will be more videos. Thank you.